So this is 022 GMT in the morning of Sunday, the 18th of September 2022 in the UK. Well, GMT is applicable regardless of whether it's UK or anywhere else, but in the UK it's 01:22 hours GMT UK time on Sunday, the 18th of September 2022. Now, this is the BabyAngelGeronimo edition of the Khoodeelaar television channel, being broadcast only on the internet, not on satellite, not on terrestrial, and not on cable platforms. As usual, we have defined an updated version, stated an updated version of this edition, which reads, written, presented, and edited by Muhammad Haque, BabyAngelGeronimo Editions, Khoodeelaar television channel, being broadcast on the internet, only on the internet, not on terrestrial, not on satellite, not on cable platforms. We shall be updating regularly on the various aspects of the depravity, criminality by agencies of the UK state acting without any accountability whatsoever. DEFRA, the Department of Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, is the one that has been committing the depravity against BabyAngelGeronimo, and in doing so has been actually engaged in doing similar attacks and violations against other innocent beings. All the generic and specific acts of depravity, degeneration, that are committed by the UK state agencies against targeted individuals, against targeted groups of individuals, targeted to be discriminated against, violated, and abused. BabyAngelGeronimo was targeted for 4 years by the UK DEFRA, which is the department in the name of the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. And the DEFRA is the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, founded in 2001. Now, it was founded in 2001 during the regime fronted by Tony Blair. It had other departments that were super kind of merged together to call it DEFRA, Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Food, and Department of the Environment, Transport and Regions. And subsidiaries of the department are Rural Payments Agency, etc. And what is happening with the daily updates or regular updates on the behavior of DEFRA and depraved DEFRA and the depraved department is that we are actually building up a narrative entirely based on facts about the depravity of the UK state agencies. And everything that they did for 4 years against, or over 4 years against the BabyAngelGeronimo, they did intentionally to cause pain and suffering and to deny the most precious liberty and right to a being, which is life. Now, this is something that cannot be believed in the week that is coming to an end now, Well, it's a fortnight, but I mean, it's coming to an end on Monday with the planned funeral of Brenda, otherwise known as Queen Elizabeth II, who is being given a mourning, that is MOURN, mourning passage by literally millions of little Englanders. People are lining up in queues lasting for anything up to probably 20 hours or longer. And when asked at random on television news outlets, how would they do if the waiting hours were even longer? Almost all of them said that they would not mind. Now, Brenda was the queen, for heaven's sake. She was not somebody's aunt or grandmother, except the grandmother of 8 or 9 grandchildren. But she was not an ordinary individual. She was secluded in palaces, etc., etc., and her kind of the amount of money, public money that she has been given or paid or made available to her has been completely unjustified and obscene. I mean, the estate that is being inherited is the kind of significant word in quotation, by Diana's elder son, William, who is now the Prince of Wales. It's more than £1 billion, more than £1.5 billion. This is the statistics about Little England, which is undergoing at the very same time crisis, moderately called cost of living crisis. It's billions of pounds being admitted as being spent for the so-called royal family, while millions of ordinary people are being pressed into hardship, cost of living hardships. And even the ones that are suffering from the cost of living pressures, even they are quite happy to admit that they would go and join the queues, even if the queues were 30 hours long. Now, this is the extent of brazenness in the brainwashing that is complete. How many of these people, of course, there are people, very small number, but there are people who would have objected to the depravity of DEFRA and depravity of Boris Johnson colluding with DEFRA in causing the maximum hardship, in plotting to cause the maximum hardship by plotting to create the maximum pretexts and excuses for the torture, the planned torture and hurt that they wanted to cause to baby angel Geronimo. Imagine baby angel Geronimo was little Olivia, the 9-year-old girl in Liverpool. Everyone legitimately, genuinely, absolutely heartbroken about the fact that this child was shot dead while she was standing right behind her mom, who was herself shot, but who was only there at the door, trying to investigate what the commotion was. Here was the 9-year-old child whose passing at the hands of the gunmen criminals has been treated with universal condemnation against the murderers. So if the baby angel Geronimo were a human child, say like Olivia, and if Olivia had been, instead of being suddenly murdered, if it was known that Olivia had been targeted over 4 years, during which the murderers had been spreading lies against her, this innocent infant, and making excuses or looking for excuses to do her serious hurt, the entire country would rise up in absolute disgust against the plotters and liars. And rightly so. But in the case of this particular 4-year campaign of demonization, vilification, falsification against the baby angel Geronimo, in that campaign, they used the slogans that they were doing so to safeguard health. Now, there was nothing to safeguard health from the baby angel Geronimo, the perfectly healthy, and the most healthy Geronimo going on, to be found anywhere. So when they say that they were doing that to help others avoid being contaminated by infected animals, they were lying, because what they said about the reason for continuously devising various excuses to do harm to the baby angel Geronimo was that he was capable of spreading disease to other animals. That was absolutely physically impossible, because baby angel Geronimo has always been in the perfect health. So it is impossible for him to spread any illness to other animals when he carries no illness. During the period of reporting, that stage in the months of July and August 2021, it was quite clear that baby angel Geronimo had no infection, no illness, and not only that, the depraved DEFRA were determined to hide the truth, and they have hidden the truth even up to now, because all the evidence of the tests that were conducted on baby angel Geronimo showed the opposite result. And when Helen MacDonald Baby Angel Geronimo mom in South Gloucestershire, herself a nurse and a conscientious woman who knows the difference between fakery and genuine emergency and so on. So when she was asked by one of the reporters in August 2021 about Baby Angel Geronimo, she said he was an exceptional baby who was very sociable and cheeky, because unlike most of the alpacas, he would come down and kind of interact with humans in a very social way. So Leonie Walker was distraught. That is the word used by the Times in August 2021. Leonie Walker was distraught at the fact that they were spreading after Baby Angel Geronimo came to the UK, that the UK government were spreading these lies about him being unwell or carrying any illness or disease, etc. And she was equally distraught that Baby Angel Geronimo left for the UK. I don't think that she will ever get over the loss and the loss of losing Baby Angel Geronimo to UK. The picture of the two of them, Helen MacDonald and Baby Angel Geronimo, standing there in South Gloucestershire, it could not be more pure. There was this woman, the human woman who loves the baby and is doing her best to protect him from the attacks by the cruel, evil humans. And the whole world stands frozen. The whole world stands frozen. And God appears to have disappeared. And the evil elements of Satan taken over. And Baby Angel Geronimo is crying. That is the witness that sums up the feelings of all the targets of the vilification and defamation and demonization done against innocent targets by agencies of the state, letting loose agents of Satan who are working on the license given to Satan by God, as described in the Quran in the Surah Isra. God gives the permission to the Satan, to the Iblis, to try and delude as many men, that is, as many human beings as possible. And God is confident that his human beings would never be deluded by Satan. And the Satan has an agent at number 10 Downing Street, Boris Johnson, who, like Satan, defies divine demand for innocence to be respected. And Satan Johnson defiantly says he has the power, so he would not respect baby angel Geronimo. So that is the summary at this stage, and we shall be adding to the summary, to the facts, every single edition. Now, moving on to the Saturday's paper, the Financial Times, which is cover price in the UK on Saturday, the 17th of September 2022, cost £4.50. Now, that is because of paywall. You can't access the articles unless you are a subscriber online. So the paywall blocks you. Now, because of the print edition has the full article, you can see the FT lunch that they staged with Orhan Pamuk. It's a Turkish writer, but his kind of significance is emphasized by the Financial Times writer by describing him as the winner of the Nobel Prize. Now, it is absurd to define somebody's importance by applying the Nobel Prize as the criteria. Most thinkers, most campaigners, most activists, moral, social, democratic activists in the world on the face of the earth will never get the Nobel Prize. And they don't even know about the Nobel Prize. What they know is the actual dedication they have to the cause that they serve, they pursue. So although Orhan Pamuk has been suitably, contextually paraded in the Financial Times piece as somebody who is in the topical context luckier than Salman Rushdie. There's a Satan Rushdie because he says, Pamuk says, that at least in Turkey he's not being killed by his opponents. Now that is supposed to be a serious comment about the badness in the eyes of the Financial Times of the Muslims who object to Satan Rushdie. Now, I object to Satan Rushdie not because I want to kill him. I would not support anyone else wanting to do him any harm. But I would demand the right to condemn him for lying. Satan Rushdie is a practiced liar. And his lying is the one that causes the most annoyance and the most harm and the damage to debate and to the cause of ethics and morality and freedom and all the rest of it. Their kind of convenient juxtaposition of Satan Rushdie in the piece about Orhan Pamuk gives the game away about the real agenda the Financial Crimes is pursuing. The Financial Crimes, as I have been saying, is currently edited by a woman who was born as a quote Muslim in Lebanon. But in her career so far, until she landed the job at the financial crimes, she has voluntarily shed all traces of being a Lebanese, or at least all traces of being a Muslim, in the context of the anti Muslim agenda, the crusader agenda that the Western media pursues against Muslims. So, this piece about Orhan Pamuk and Saturday's financial crimes has a reference to Satan Rushdie in the way that is predictable. Now, even if Satan Rushdie is less lucky than Pamuk, the comparison with Satan Rushdie in this piece gives the financial crimes agenda away. Because the book that Satan Rushdie has written, Satanic Verses, is not a creative work. It's a book directly dictated by Satan himself. There is no other explanation. It's not some kind of intellectual dexterity on the part of the writer, Satan Rushdie, who intellectually kind of just happened to come to the conclusion about the insertion of the lies and replacing the truth with the little lies in the context of the contents of the Holy Quran. There was no need for this. So, as every intentional act of attack on the Muslim community is found to be exposed as an intentional, unnecessary kind of excuse under the pretext of literature. Monica Ali's so-called Brick Lane is a theft of the name Brick Lane and a bigger theft of the work that I have been doing in defending the idea of Brick Lane since the Sunday Times published that piece, The World Beyond the Curtains, on 2nd of December 1973, byline to this pathetic, shameless, corrupt woman called Leslie Garner. So 50 years almost, well, it's less than 50 years, but 5 decades, let's say, I have been campaigning against the Sunday Times piece, and I've been using that as an example of how the anti-Muslims create any kind of pretext to attack Muslims where there is no need, there is no evidence. This Monica Ali, who is the mixed race daughter of a white woman and a Bengali, non-Siloti man from North Bengal in Bangladesh, Monica Ali is devoid of literary abilities or qualities. But she was connected with a Bengali, which the anti-Muslim criminals wrongly thought that they could sell as the same thing as being a Bangladeshi. She's not a Bangladeshi. She is a Bengali European mixed race. Tool and stooge for racists. And her being a daughter of a white woman and a Bengali man, was exploited by her as well as by her exploiters or colluders or handlers who gave her advance payments of several £100,000, if not several £1,000,000 in advance. Now, any intelligent reader of that so-called work of fiction would find that it's a very low quality, poor quality book, so-called. And it is so disgusting because it has got a scene or scenes, as evident in the film version of it, where illicit, adulterous sex was being had by people in the kind of protagonists. This is portrayed as a novelty. That is to say, that having sex or adulterous sex in the Muslim community is one of the biggest sins, which is what the anti-Muslim morons have tried to use as an example to condemn the real critics of the corrupt so-called book. Now, 2nd of December 1973 was 5 decades ago. So let's say 40 years. So when Monica Ali's book was being made a film, who turns up in the Fleet Street papers congratulating Monica Ali and condemning the critics of Monica Ali and the Bangladeshis in defending the general image of Brick Lane? It's none other than Leslie Garner. Now, it is very important to point out that if she had any remorse, any sense of morality or ethics or responsibility, she would have taken note of the work that I've been doing, consistently condemning her article in the Sunday Times magazine. And she would have never volunteered an additional confirmation of her intent to attack the Muslims 40 years later. By supporting Monica Ali and condemning us, the critics of Monica Ali, Leslie Garner only proved what she should have kept quiet about, that she was not an innocent outsider observing the Bangladeshi community in Brick Lane at the beginning of the 1970s. She was a corrupt, poisonous, racist, anti-Muslim stooge that wanted to attack the Muslims for her own purposes, which is why the Sunday Times article is as bad as it is. And what has happened in the 40 years between 40 years between December 1973 and Monica Ali's appearance in the beginning of this particular century is that a lot of people have made a lot of comments about freedom of expression and criticism, etc., etc. But no one has found one single iota of evidence justifying intentional, dishonest fictionalization of a real fact or factual setting. Brick Lane is a reality. Brick Lane is the name of a community in the area, and it has people, it has history, and it has everything else. So it's not like a novelist creating a name, a kind of fictional series of towns or neighborhoods. It's not J.K. Rowling. J.K. Rowling absolutely has created fictional names and fictional towns and fictional characters, which is exactly how a real fiction writer should be behaving. Here, Monica Ali became the prostitute who prostituted herself, her own personal heritage, lineage, and pimped herself for the punters who are dedicated racists and anti-Muslims. And they were doing their prostitution work, prostitution job in public, on the pavements of Brick Lane. That is unacceptable. That is not literature. And that contributed absolutely nothing to the knowledge about the community, let alone knowledge about the rights of the community, knowledge about the sufferings that malicious, intentional demonization of a perfectly innocent people made of mainly migrants causes. I mean, they glorified adulterous sex. There is no need for glorifying adulterous sex, for heaven's sake. Sex in the British literary kind of things and society as a whole is not particularly treated with dignity. So if they had produced some kind of moral example showing that being Muslim brings into play particular bad behavior that violates people's sexual freedoms or preferences or whatever, then it could be for a moment considered as a technically acceptable thing to say. But that's not what they did. It was like the sex acts were portrayed in Monica Ali's so-called film based on her so-called book. The film was done with her direct participation. It was done in a vulgar way. What is even worse was that they brought a woman from West Bengal, Kolkata, to play the main adulterous woman who had come from Silot, apparently. The character they're playing plays the main character in the Monica Lee prostitution book. So everything about the book stinks. And the stench of anti-Muslim ignorance and the stench of anti-Muslim fakery and fabrication only strengthens the evidence that the crusade is continuing. So we go back to the crusade in the Financial Times, and what they're saying there is that this man, Pamuk, so this piece about Pamuk is focused on the comparison between him and Satan Rushdie. But it has no mention of anything to do with the nearly 1,000 years or more of the crusade. Because Turkey, being a Muslim majority or Muslim country, is Europe's biggest kind of nightmare. I mean, to the racists and Nazis in Germany, to their kind of counterparts in other parts of Western Europe, the Turks pose the threat which Boris Johnson, the Satan, actually put into words and used in order to frighten Little Englanders into submitting to the demands of Brexit. Because in 2016, Boris Johnson said that if the UK stayed in the European Union, then the next thing would be for the Turks, millions of Turks to invade the UK, and there was nothing that could stop the Turks coming into the UK in their millions. I mean, that was the decisive poison against Turkey that Boris Johnson actually administered to get the Brexit vote. Because that will remain the biggest event about Turkey culturally for a very long time. And no amount of labored kind of comparison with Satan Rushdie can begin to do justice to the real issues that readers need to be told about in relation to Turkey. And this woman, what's her name? Laura Patel, is the Financial Times Turkey correspondent. Laura Patel is like any other Laura, based in a Muslim country or a kind of non-European country on behalf of a media outlet. For example, the one in the Guardian is a kind of infantile woman, young woman based in New Delhi for the Guardian. And she's wrongly styled as the Guardian South Asia correspondent. She's not anything of the sort because the Guardian doesn't publish any factual stories that really matter to hundreds of millions of Indian people. What the Guardian does is kind of take strategic stances to come across as if its writers concerned, because this can only be done by one single writer. Writer concerned is doing the things that amount to liberal kind of leadership by the West for the Muslims to follow. The massacre in Spain, well, it was genocide, serial genocide. The genocidal, barbaric massacres of Muslims, hundreds of millions of Muslims have been butchered in Europe. And none of that is anywhere near this interview. These are the real issues. Instead, they are talking about Erdogan. And the heading there in the piece written by this Laura Patel, whether the heading was written by her or her editor, or the de facto editor, that is not clear who actually wrote the headings. But the heading does the job. Is Erdogan cannot curtail anyone's voice anymore. Well, the Financial Times is not criticizing the Brenda's family or the West UK government inviting the most uninvitable personnel to attend the funeral. Will those invitees steer clear? They won't. Because one of the invitees is, of course, the Saudi Crown Prince. Nothing in the piece talks about Erdogan's kind of role in truth about the real issues that matter to the Turkish people. Erdogan is being used as a baddie because that is what suits the agenda of the anti-Muslims, not because the particular items under reference in the report are not genuine. Those the items are genuine, but less genuine is the Financial Times's relationships with those political agendas and the political agenda fixers or agenda pushers or agenda makers that would be happy, pleased with this lunch piece with Pamuk. Now, going back to the events in Charsadda in Pakistan during Saturday, the Charsadda Jalsa that Imran Khan addressed on Saturday, the 17th of September 2022. The Charsadda Jalsa contained the same kind of elements that have been contained in Imran Khan's speeches in other Jalsas. We shall be talking more about all of these issues in due course, of course. I think that we shall come to the point about the reading of the poem Bidruhi that I was interrupted while I was doing in the last edition. Because of the place where I'm broadcasting from, it has got acoustic issues that actually do not protect the sound from reaching other rooms. I will postpone or delay reading the Nazrul poem or poems until an alternative acoustic arrangement can be found. Suffice to say that I'm the translator of Nazrul's poetry, whose standard, the translation, are far more different, let's put it this way, because I'm saying it about my own work, than can be found in the translations done by anyone in the university of Dhaka or any other university in Calcutta or any other place. I'll explain that and explain my particular expertise as a translator. When I translate something, not Nazrul, I'm not talking about Nazrul, but I'm talking about other poems and other so-called poems, the quality of the composition, in terms of the quality of the composition, the coherence, etc., becomes very different when I do a particular translation. So we shall be going over these issues in due course. In due course, of course, after the bank holiday Monday, which the bank holiday is being kind of declared. Currently,